the tragedy of the whole thing makes Pumpkinhead feel like Sesame Street. What's up, boils and ghouls? The first week of October 2025 is in the books. Hopefully, plenty of horror movies are in your books. But if you are looking for some more, if you're turning to Tubi, I've got 5 movies that you need to be watching this October. Tubi feels like the Wild West at times. There's just so many movies there because everything is supported by ads. Sometimes stuff that's not even supposed to be there is there. Lots of the movies that are on Tubi, some of the best horror movies, are also available on other streaming platforms, so I'm not going to be covering those. If you want to see the complete list of all of my favorite horror movies that are streaming on Tubi, you can click this thing up here and see the very long list of all my favorites. So today, I'm only going to be talking about the 5 that are a little bit harder to track down on all of the major platforms. So here we go. The Old Dark House. This movie was directed by Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man director James Whale. It stars Boris Karloff, and surprisingly, it actually sort of sets the template or the format, if you will, for completely iconic movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Rocky Horror Picture Show, House of a Thousand Corpses, Tourist Trap, lots of very unlikely movies that you don't necessarily think of when you think of 1932 black and white movies directed by James Whale. The movie follows a group of characters who are all traveling through the Welsh countryside in the middle of a horrifying thunderstorm, and they all seek refuge at, well, an old dark house. Once they're there, all sorts of weird things are happening, from the family itself being full of eccentric characters to their servant, played by Boris Karloff, supposedly being a mute, violent drunk, and the entire Femme family who lives there making all these bizarre claims about what the hell is really going on in their house and with their family. The Old Dark House really set the template for the concept of weary travelers trying to find some help from people and finding themselves in horrifying, disturbing situations. The movie not only manages to embrace the absurdity of trying to find help in such a situation, while also being a relatively creepy experience in its own right, because the audience and these characters never really get a good sense of what the hell is going on with this family and what's going on in this old dark house. Even at nearly 100 years old, the movie feels just as fresh and funny as it probably did back when it was released. I think that's what's most surprising, is just how genuinely funny this movie is, and not in a way of laughing at it ironically because of how much time has passed and how much different it is. There's just lots of very good jokes in this movie. Another thing that makes The Old Dark House such a delight to watch is the fact that the movie takes place during a storm, and virtually every scene you can hear the rain and the wind blustering outside, and it's really evocative, really atmospheric. So even though there is lots of silly stuff going on, that sound design amplifies how alone these travelers are and how isolated they are from the rest of civilization. Because of those rain sounds, it just feels like the perfect movie to throw on a chilly October evening, or I guess daytime if you prefer that sort of thing. It's also one of James Whale's more queer-coded movies because there's the implication of some non-heteronormative relationships going on in this house and between these strangers who just met one another. So it's really exciting to see this movie that was pretty hard to find for decades. Now you just watch it for free on Tubi and get in the perfect spirit for Halloween. When you boot up Tubi, you might not immediately be thinking, I'm gonna watch a Soviet-era horror movie about witches, but after you watch V, you're gonna realize you were a complete fool for not obviously going to watch that movie. The movie follows a trio of seminary students passing through the countryside, and when one of them discovers a witch, he kills her. When he gets back to the seminary, he's tasked with going back out to the countryside to watch over the dead body of a young woman and offer prayers. Much to his surprise, this dead girl is actually the witch he killed on his way back to the seminary. I'm really a sucker for movies about witches, and V does not disappoint. Based on the short story of the same name from 1835, V is just one of the most surreal, disturbing, unsettling horror movies to come out of the 60s. Every night that the seminary student watches over this dead woman, this dead witch, weird things happen. It's really hard to put into words all of the strangeness that this movie contains. The fact that this movie was made in the 60s means that the visual effects that were available at the time were a bit limited, you could say, especially in the Soviet Union. But the ways that the filmmaker created all these goblins and ghouls and monsters and spirits and all sorts of spooky stuff is just really impressive, and it just really adds to the authenticity and the effectiveness of this movie. The narrative might be a bit thin because it's basically three students going through the countryside and then one student going and watching over this dead body for 3 days. But the fact that this movie is only 80 minutes long means that you can just pop it on and be treated to just 80 minutes of absolutely surreal weirdness. Even if you don't listen to it, because it is in Russian. If you just put it on mute, it's a great movie to put on in the background as you're possibly having a Halloween party. Suspiria. On the one hand, I could shame you if you've never seen Suspiria and have waited to watch it on Tubi, interrupted by commercials. But on the other hand, I would rather just say, hey, you can watch Suspiria right now for free, so long as you put up with some commercials. If V didn't scratch the itch of surrealist horror about witches, then Suspiria has got you covered. Dario Argento's movie follows American ballet student Susie Banyan as she goes to a prestigious dance school in Germany. While she's there, students go missing, some die, some claim that the school is run by witches, and, well, spoiler alert, they're right. Much like the atmosphere and sound design of the old dark house really elevates the material, the first 5 minutes alone of Suspiria is just as horrifying and disturbing and bizarre as some other entire movies. All that happens is Jessica Harper's Susie comes out of an airport, grabs a taxi, and goes to this school. But all of this is amplified by Goblin's score. It's got wind effects, it's got rain, it's got people running through the woods in strobe effects. It's just so bizarre and just sets the stage for everything that's about to follow. It's hard to say things about Suspiria that haven't already been said before. Dario Argento's lighting, the set design, the music, the performances, the script, the violence. There's just so much about this movie that works, and it's a masterpiece for a reason. So whether you've been putting off watching this movie or just want to watch it for the 1000th time, you can go to Tubi and watch Suspiria. Pumpkinhead. Given the title of the movie alone, no Halloween season is really complete if you don't watch Pumpkinhead at least once. The movie sees a group of unruly college kids riding dirt bikes through the California countryside, only for a tragedy to strike. Lance Henriksen plays a father who's overcome with grief, who seeks the help of the demonic Pumpkinhead in order to get vengeance against those who wronged him. His desperation transforms him into that creature, and he then proceeds to track down those who caused the tragedy to get his revenge. Even though this movie is called Pumpkinhead, this recommendation does come with a disclaimer. The first half of the movie is not great. It is filmed in California, and if you've ever been to California, especially in the fall, you'll know it is not quite the autumnal dreamscape that other parts of the country are. It's hot, it's sweaty, it's dusty, and when you watch the first half of Pumpkinhead, you see dirt, heat, dust, and a very, very sweaty Lance Henriksen. The vibe of the first half of the movie is not at all the autumn that most people picture with crunchy leaves and a chill in the air. It's actually the quite opposite of that. When you watch the second half of the movie, you get to enjoy Pumpkinhead chasing these teens through forests, through decaying, broken down farmhouses and homes in that countryside. So the back half of the movie fully makes up for the frustrations of the first half of the movie. The creature itself is an all-time classic monster design, and if that wasn't enough of a reason to check out this monster movie, Lance Henriksen is fantastic in this movie, and his son is adorable. So even though this is just like a monster movie that might feel like I'm just going to throw it on and not really pay attention and get some schlocky creature feature from the 80s. It's actually a really tragic experience, and Henriksen really sells how grief stricken his character is. So, as long as you can get through the first half of the movie and how hot and freaking sweaty it is, the back half of the movie more than makes up for it. The Lodge. If you were frustrated that Pumpkinhead wasn't a depressing enough movie, well, great news, because The Lodge is also available on Tubi. From filmmakers Veronica Franz and Severin Fiala, The Lodge sees a father taking his children to a remote cabin to spend Christmas with his new partner Grace. Grace grew up in a cult and managed to escape the mass suicide event, but the children don't quite believe that she's really left her extremist beliefs behind. When their father has to go back into the city for some work, the kids start provoking Grace to see if she'll embrace her former extremist ways, all while she struggles to maintain her sanity during all this provocation. While I do think The Lodge is a horror movie worth seeing, the tragedy of the whole thing makes Pumpkinhead feel like Sesame Street. The entire experience is just depressing and disturbing. You see how things are unfolding through Grace's emotional and psychological mindset, so the audience is also confused about what the hell is going on, what is real, what she's making up, what is something that's just evoking flashbacks to her time in this extremist cult. Admittedly, given the setting of The Lodge and the fact that it takes place during winter over Christmas break, the vibes are a little bit more in line with something that you would watch in the winter. But given that it is a horror movie and that it is streaming for free on Tubi, I think it deserves to be included on this list. So those are my picks for the 5 horror movies that are currently streaming on Tubi that you can't quite track down as easily on other platforms. If you want to see my complete list of everything I recommend you check out on Tubi, again, just click this thing up here. And if you think I missed something, feel free to let me know down in the comments. Subscribe, like, do all that stuff that every YouTuber asks you to do. And I'll see you on Tubi.